Hey, everyone. Is anybody dealing with absolutely awful neck pain after playing Tears of the Kingdom for way too long? Me. I am. Please help. Honestly though, I can't even be mad because this game is so much fun. It's weird to realize it's already been 6 whole years since Breath of the Wild released, and now here we are with the most amazing sequel. What's even crazier is that now, Breath of the Wild, game that was acclaimed by literally everyone and their mom at release for being the best, feels empty compared to Tears of the Kingdom. There is so much to do, and the NPCs feel livelier than ever. It's so refreshing to finally see some life and action going on with the characters all across Hyrule. So much so, it made me want to create my very own character, one that could live in these vast lands. So here I am today, and we are going to be doing just that. I'll be using various character generators online to help with that. One for the appearance, one for the personality, and one for the name. This will help especially as to not just stick with my own preferences and hopefully step out of my comfort zone. The fun part will come after that, which will be to integrate this character into the rich universe of Tears of the Kingdom. Without further ado, let's get started. Oh, by the way, I'll make sure to have all the links to the generators I've used down below in the description. They're honestly amazing for creating characters from the ground up, so make sure to check them out. Starting with the appearance, I honestly really liked my first result. I allowed myself to reroll if something didn't inspire me at all, but I had no need for this one. I already had ideas with that description alone, and by that point I knew this was going to be a boy. Long hair on boys is just neat, what can I say? And if you disagree, well, it's okay to be wrong sometimes, I guess. Also, spoiler alert, but I'm not sure if I really managed to convey the very short and broad aspects. Next, his personality. Now this one was definitely a bit harder. I had to reroll a couple of times because sometimes some elements in the profiles just contradicted each other too much to make sense. When I got this profile, however, I knew it had to be the one. I love how it even added his MBTI type. I'm a sucker for these. Plus, he's just one letter away from mine, since I'm an INFP. Do you know what your MBTI is? I highly suggest looking it up if you don't, it's always super interesting to read about and crazy accurate. Back to his personality, I honestly can't say there's anything about it I'd change. I love that he's respectful, yet has rebellious tendencies. It's the perfect kind of contrast I look for in characters. While they seem like opposite elements, they don't necessarily contradict one another. So overall, he's a curious person, free-spirited and kind. A bit hostile but enthusiastic, and careless when it's time to take risks. I love it. For the name, you'd think it'd be the easiest part. But no. Not for me. Never for me. I am awfully picky when it comes to naming characters. Did I say earlier I allowed myself to reroll a couple of times? Well, translate that as 10 minutes of non-stop rerolls for this guy's name. Not a single one sounded right. I even kept my options open and allowed names of all genders, but it was never good enough. So I kept generating new names, and just as I almost lost all hopes, it happened. A name appeared. One that sounded just right. Phelim. I'm not keeping the last name since Zelda characters typically don't have them, so it'll be just Phelim. And I adore it. Now that the base is covered, I figured the next step could be to sketch out his face. You may wonder why not just the entire design at once, but you'll soon see why not. I started with a simple base for the face, keeping in mind his eyes are of average size, which was basically my only restriction for the facial features. The real challenge would be the hair. Because there are so many ways you can style long, dark hair. So I tried a bunch of hairstyles. I wanted to keep it simple because his personality didn't seem to suggest he would have some fancy hairstyle. I ended up going for the side ponytail one, which gives him a cute but messy look that suits him the best in my opinion. I very quickly colored the sketch to get a proper feeling of his design. And boom, that's one thing done. The next step is the one I was the most excited for. The clothes. One of my favorite things about Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is the variety of the fashion all across Hyrule. Different cultures will have different patterns, different types of clothing, and the amount of details put into them is just so cool to me. So I decided to go on a fashion hunting journey in Hyrule and study what the clothes are like, and I'm bringing you along with me. The stables are a good place to start, as there are lots of different people going in them, travelers, researchers, and more. And, oh my god, do I love what the employees of the stables are wearing. Like, excuse me, is that not the cutest thing ever? The little animal print? The gemstone eyes, this is going into my final design, no questions asked. I also really like what these two are wearing, and you can already see some patterns on their clothes. I've noticed this sort of squarish pattern is mostly found among travelers. Now this guy knows how to dress. I love the layers and the belt he has around his waist. Next I decided to stop by the Lookout Landing. There's a great variety of different characters there as well. This motif right here, I love it, and I'm definitely going to be incorporating it. And, yes, I do feel like I'm invading people's privacy. But this is for the greater good. People from Lurelin also have some of my favorite clothes, it's so pretty. Hey, girl. Anyways. Next stop is Kakariko. I love the Sheikas, although they don't have a lot of variety in terms of clothing. Definitely still worth observing though. Let's pretend this didn't happen. I really do love seeing all the different designs, even just face-wise sometimes. Of course we also need to stop by Hateno Village. Kind of crazy this became the hotspot for fashion. If I can be entirely honest though, while I love Cece, this whole mushroom thing just isn't doing it for me. The silhouettes of her clothes are nice and all, but of all things, why mushrooms? Sorry, I was born a mushroom hater. Though I'll admit the backpacks are pretty cute. The little lantern is super pretty. But, sorry, Cece, I won't be incorporating any of those elements on film. God, I hate when they just turn to look at me. Don't make it more awkward than it already is. I love this mix and match of Hateno fashion and Cece's stuff. It's fun, it's cute, it's camp. Good for you girls. Alright, I think we got enough research done to finally get to work on my own design. I had this idea while seeing all those designs. What if Phelim has no real sense of fashion at all? What if, instead, he just gets clothes from a bit of everywhere as he travels from town to town, resulting in a kind of random mix and match of different clothes and patterns? The funniest part would be to make him native to Hateno Village, so this is the base I decided to start with. A guy who can't really dress, though he likes fashion to some extent, he just sucks at it. And his clothes need to be fit for lots of adventures and travels too, so it can't be extravagant. The first thing I knew I'd have is a coat with the horse pattern from the stable workers. I already had it pictured in my head, hence why here I'm starting with the outfit under, as it would be hard to draw around the coat. I imagine it to be made of a thick material, so it's warm, but also kind of oversized on Phelim because he's, you know, small. I kinda based the rest of the outfit around the coat. I love this kind of oversized silhouette. Big coat, small shorts, kind of big shoes. The shirt underneath is of course based on Lurelin fashion, with the hook-like pattern on the collar, and the belt around his waist. I do change it later on to be a fabric type of belt as I just didn't like what this was looking like. Gave him a neck scarf as I saw some characters wearing it and loved it, and a pochette kind of hidden under his coat because all adventurers need those. I also took the pattern on his belt from one I saw from an NPC. For the colors, I went with the primary colors because you can't ever go wrong with them. It's fun and colorful. The shorts have the pattern I mentioned I really like earlier. I also noticed it on Toro, so I guess it's either just something popular among Hylians or it's specific to the Zonai survey team. And with that, his design is complete. Just like in my last video, I wanted to make a final illustration for him to really showcase his design. But not just any kind. If you've played the game, then by now you should know about the character profiles you collect as you meet new people in the game. It's mostly for important characters, so I guess a NPC-like character like Phelim would not belong in it. But who cares, I decided he will. Now, I knew replicating the art style from the game would be hard, but I definitely underestimated how difficult it would get. You see, the pictures used in the profiles have this distinct look to them. It looks a bit messy, with rough brush strokes to shape things around. It mostly relies on shadows as well, with no line art. The only clean part is the face. I thought with that only in mind I'd be fine. But, not really. I did try my best though. Also, as you can see, I did use 3D models for the drawings in this video. I use the Android app Magic Poser for these, and it's so helpful when I actually do remember to use it. Some may call it lazy, but I honestly don't care anymore. Sometimes, instead of struggling with a pose, you just want to get over with it and start with the details. It's ideal if you need to pump out content regularly as it can save so much time. I definitely recommend trying it out. Again, the art style is so hard to emulate for some reason. It's probably because most characters only appear in-game, hence in 3D, which can be tricky to translate into 2D. And it's not like there's a specific, striking way they do the characters' faces either. They're all so different. I wish I could use whatever it is they do to basically use me parts that convert into the game style. Don't ask me how it works, I honestly have no clue. I just wish I could use it. Would have made this whole video a lot easier. My plan for how to proceed about this was basically apply all the base colors, and then, using a textured brush similar to the one used in the official art, shade and do the whole rendering process. I put on a darker color behind him since the profiles are on a black background, because I thought it'd help me, but this was actually sort of a mistake. The problem is that instead of using a dark gray, I should have just gone with pure black, and you'll see why later on as I did my first try with the profile template I've made. I don't know why the legs in particular gave me such a hard time, to be honest. It got so frustrating at some point I almost scrapped the whole idea. I'm glad I pushed through though, and even if it took several tries, I eventually got to a point where it was okay, enough for me to leave it as is. When it got too much, I switched over to other areas of the drawing, such as the face. Now thankfully this was easier than the rest, but it definitely was a challenge of its own too. Because it had to somehow look like a 3D game render. Why do I make myself go through these things, honestly? It was pretty fun though, definitely more in my comfort zone. Just needed to make it look neat, without too much shading and details. You might also notice I'm working all in one layer here, and, yeah, I have no excuses for that. I somehow just prefer it that way. And if you're wondering, I did have a reference open on my phone that I kept looking at as I was drawing to make sure I wasn't drifting away to my own art style too much. I know for a lot of people, Breath of the Wild was their first ever Zelda game, so I often wonder what they would think of all the previous games since they're so different in so many ways. For me personally, I guess my first Zelda would be Wind Waker, which is also my favorite game of all time. I've replayed it so many times since I was a kid. It started out as just watching my dad playing the game, and eventually I decided to play it too, though I would mostly just run around everywhere in my dad's game file. It made me so happy when they brought back the Koroks in Breath of the Wild, especially since they reused the same exact models for most of them. I miss Makar though. It would have been so nice if they somehow brought him back too, but I guess that's kind of impossible. It's good enough that they named an island after him, I guess. Another thing I would have loved to see brought back somehow are the Kokiris. It's kind of crazy to me how they've only ever been in Ocarina of Time, and I guess Wind Waker, but barely so. They're such an important tribe and yet, they're just nowhere to be seen after Ocarina of Time. Maybe they'll be back in a future game? I mean, if the Ritos and the Zoras and both exist at once in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, why not the Koroks and the Kokiris? Anyways, that's just me having some wishful thinking. Was there anything you guys wanted to see brought back in newer games? One other thing I was happy about were the Zoras. They're definitely my favorite tribe in Zelda, and it all started with Twilight Princess. The designs in this game are all beautiful. The art direction of Twilight Princess is always so inspiring to me. I remember the first time I looked through the concept arts for the game and just falling in love with them. And now in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, the Zoras are looking better than ever. I love how colorful they are instead of just all of them being blue. Sidon and Mipha are peak Zora designs. I love them so much. Back to the drawing. At this point, I felt like something was still off about the drawing. So I decided to check how he looked on the profile I made for him. And yep, it just didn't work. The hair was too dark and disappeared in some places, and Phelan looked too flat somehow. So before continuing, I studied the art style some more, and looked at various characters and how they were shaded, and it really helped. Now I knew what was wrong and how to fix it. It went a lot more smoothly after that for sure. I added more textures, more details to the hair and fixed the color hues. And boom. Not perfect by any means, but doesn't he look neat? Honestly, I'm pretty satisfied with it. It was worth the hours of struggle. I had a lot of fun editing the profile too. I basically just used a screenshot and cleaned it from the descriptions and pictures and added my own. Surprisingly enough, the font I used is just Arial. It's a really close match. I tried finding the exact same one, but I didn't feel like spending money on a font I'd only use once. As his description reads, Fei Lim is an explorer who lives for the thrill of new discoveries. He loves above all exploring towns and researching their secrets and mysteries. He usually prefers working on his own, as he tends to go for the more risky outcomes whenever he is faced with problems. His curiosity seems to know no bounds. His poor sense of fashion seems to annoy some people of Hateno Village, where he was born. Do you like him? I know I do. Maybe someday I'll make another Zelda OC that isn't an Hylian? Let me know in the comments down below if you'd like to see that, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. See you soon for more art struggle.